That fall foliage really kicking into high gear off the backstretch, that elongated backstretch at Belmont Park, as we get that main track ready for you in that first race post of 12:55 this coming Wednesday. In fact, only 10 live racing cards remain. We'll kick off, you ready? The penultimate week of the fall meet this coming Wednesday. It's Richard Migliore, Jason Blewitt. Glad you've stopped by to join us on the National Racing Report, and we are getting closer. In fact, Mig, less than 2 weeks out from the Breeders' Cup.
Boy, it just seems like it's really bearing down faster than I anticipated, but the whole year's been like that. I remember thinking Belmont Stakes time about Saratoga, and then there we were, and then it was over, and now here we are in almost what you said, the penultimate week of racing.
Got a couple graded stakes to bring you from Belmont Park on tonight's show. We'll make some stops across the country, and I like we have a diverse number, or at least amount of races, considering we'll make a rare trip for us at Finger Lakes and a turf race at Hawthorne. We don't have too many of those on the National Racing Report.
Not many at all, and the turf course is still in very good condition there.
All right, let's move on to the action at Belmont Park, the first of two stakes on Saturday's program. Gorgeous day. We were fast and firm, and here's a look at the 2-year-olds in the futurity. Keep your eye on the blue horse, the Godolphin Blue. That is Annual Report, who was squeezed out shortly after the break.
You could see Joe Bravo left with intention, wanted to get his position going forward, but he got squeezed back. And here was a horse that had one start at Parks where he was basically on the lead. He laid second in the clear for a little ways, but never had any dirt in his face, never had to overcome any kind of adversity. But I thought he showed a great deal of maturity, handling everything that was thrown at him, Jason, in the futurity.
Yeah, this was not a case of just blunt force trauma with a horse going to the lead and just wiring the field going 3/4. He had that misfortunate break, or shortly after the break, and had to take dirt, shut himself down, wheel to the outside, and sustain sort of an old-school Belmont 5-wide balcony run here as he tries to outrun and outfinish King Krantz, who was the favorite, and the maiden, who was coming out of that good race against Mohaman and Seymour Deeney.
And I think King Krantz made a case that maiden race was as good as we thought it was. But at the end of the day, Annual Report is a horse that has a look of he's going to relish more distance. He's going to like it as he matures more, because he's kind of a big, thick, solid horse that I think as he matures more physically, and obviously this race will go a long way for his mental capacity as well, he's going to be a horse to keep an eye on. I went back and watched this race several times again last night. When he hit the front, he kind of got to looking around, even though he came with a full head of momentum, full head of steam. And you're going to watch as he goes under the wire. His ears come up, and he won as though he was saying, what else? Is there something else I can go catch?
And was very cool, calm, and collected when they got him back to the winner's circle. Was barely blowing off this effort, and he's a perfect 2 for 2 now for Keir McLaughlin, who has quite the deep bench for Sheikh Mohammed's Godolphin stable. When I think back to Watershed, who looked good winning an allowance race Thursday at Keeneland, they've got marking. I mean, Sheikh Mohammed has got a number of promising, good-looking runners, and I'd put Annual Report right up there with the best.
You know, I think we're all very high on Mohamed, and rightfully so. I thought he did a lot of things right in that maiden race we talked about earlier. But this horse really moved up in my eyes, and I don't know that he's maybe is not going to contend for Kieran's best 2-year-old colt.
And Mohamed, by the way, a perfect 1 for 1, a colt by Tappet, is pointing to the November 4th opening day Nashua at a 1-turn mile over at Aqueduct, and the plans potentially call for this horse, Annual Report, who's by the late Harlan's Holiday, to either run in the Remsen or the Kentucky Jockey Club, so he'll get that 2-turn test in the near future.
Yeah, and I think he'll handle it well. Everything from his pedigree to how he looked physically and the way he ran coming from off the pace, albeit not by design, and so he had to call an audible. And let's give Joe Bravo some props. There wasn't a lot of panic there. He's a guy that's really riding in the zone, and he's getting a lot of success now on higher quality stock. It's fun to watch, you know, particularly this point in his career.
Joe has paid his dues, a perennial leading rider down on the Jersey Shore. He's got 3 graded stakes this meet alone, Mig. The Turf Classic with Big Blue Kitten, the Champagne with Greenpoint Crusader, and now you could add Annual Report to the list there for Jersey Joe and Keir McLaughlin. Let's move on to the fillies and mares. We had a big field, in fact. I believe the number was 13 or 14 out of the gate. And this Athenia, which went as race number 9, was really a case study in good posts at 1 1/16 on the inner turf.
Absolutely. 13 on that inner turf out of that chute. You're basically breaking on the outside rail of the main turf. So you've got to come uphill a little bit, slightly to the right, and then back to the left. And it's not as pronounced as, let's say, that downhill turf course at Santa Anita, obviously. But subtly, it's a very difficult race to ride. particularly if you get caught outside. And then just by human nature, the guys outside are trying to get over as fast as they can to save some kind of ground out of that dog leg. And a lot of guys get compromised in the middle. You want to be drawn to the inside. And obviously it worked well for Stellar Path, who got a terrific ride from Joel Rosario and got to save every inch of ground.
And this must have been, in a way, I think, a big sigh of relief for trainer Christophe Comant, because this Irish bred or French bred came to the United States with a fairly gaudy resume and some impressive group efforts overseas. And up until this race on Saturday, her U.S. form had been a little inconsistent, if spotty at best.
Yeah, but I think she's a filly that needed this, the kind of trip to work out where she got enough pace to run at. Although there was one horse kind of off by himself, and then it was everybody else. And you're going to see that horse on the lead, Kerry Bell. And Manny Franco's not really able to ride her. And in case people were wondering, it appeared to me that the saddle slipped, and all he could do was try to keep his balance and stay in the middle of her. He really couldn't ride her. But then you see Stellar Path just find that stellar path and get it done. I thought Lady Lara was unfortunate because of the draw. I think it really cost her.
Yeah, she had the far outside post number 13 for trainer Belmont. She was coming in on such a good effort in the Noble Damsel. Compromised from the get-go, and maybe the case could be said for Far Filet, the Flaxman Niarchos homebred who was coming in from overseas, the Irish bred who had post number 12. With the rider, the European rider was in for the mount. Very unfamiliar with this quirky kind of turf course.
Very unfamiliar with this kind of turf course and how aggressive you need to be out of that chute. He did was one of the horses, and there were 2 or 3 that got caught up in the jam there. And Lady Lara, I think Junior Alvarado did the best he could, but he spent half the race trying to get in a position where he can go forward and save ground at the same time, and that was all because of the post. And just unfortunate, post positions playing that big a factor in the outcome of a race.
And it didn't work out for Coffee Click either, who endured a wide trip. This might have been her last start of a Grade 1 winning career for Brian Lynch and the Ammermans. We'll see what she does going forward, if it is indeed to the November sale or perhaps the breeding shed. But here we go. Joel Rosario and Christophe Comant reunited with their French bred Stellar Path on a Saturday, in which Christophe breezed Tonalist a snappy 3/4 in 1:14. The Florent Giroux out-of-town show continues when we come back on the Racing Report. We've got plenty of room for one and all. Breeders' Cup weekend at Belmont Park, October 30th, and Halloween, October 31st. Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday. We've got those dining packages available in the Garden Terrace, so please join us. Nothing like watching the Breeders' Cup. If you can't be at Keeneland, come on out. Watch the Breeders' Cup. Such a great event with your fellow racing fans. 11:45 a.m., that early first post on Saturday. It's the Fall Festival at Belmont. A thermos giveaway. That'll be nice to have once we move over to the Big A, and a haunted house and family fun activities for the kids. Big Sandy, always waiting for you and always waiting for us at Belmont Park. And very excited, Mig, about this Breeders' Cup. We talk about it, I think, just about every night on Insider, but it really is tremendous thinking about the prospects of a Triple Crown winner running in the Breeders' Cup Classic in the bluegrass of Kentucky.
Well, obviously the first time that's ever taking place, because in 37 years we hadn't had a Triple Crown winner, but we had the advent of the Breeders' Cup in that time period. And I was going through a bunch of the races last night, starting to do my preparation for being down there and covering it. I was taken with how competitive so many of these races are. I mean, you think about the Classic, there's no standout. There's one of 4 or 5 that you could really make a case for. Now, obviously, American Pharaoh, all eyes will be on him, Triple Crown winner.
Right.
But how about Beholder? Beholder, she really stamped her ticket in an emphatic way with that win in the Pacific Classic.
That Pacific Classic, an effort I don't think we'll ever forget. I will remember where I was, who I was watching that race on Naira.com without the dinner that Saturday night in Saratoga Springs. Let's get to the action at Keeneland. Speaking of the Breeders' Cup, and a dirt course in which a good chunk of those 2015 Breeders' Cup races will be contended over. 3-year-old fillies coming to the head of the stretch in the Lexus Raven Run. And I know you were not totally thrilled with the trip that Bar of Gold, the runner-up, pulled.
Yeah, she was very keen, and she did take Jose Lezcano to the lead. I just thought maybe Jose should have gave in a little bit more, not gotten into kind of the tug-of-war where they're taking so much hold of her. It allowed Sarasis to stay very close to him, and with the foundation that Sarasis had dropping out of longer races, maybe you want to put some separation. And the way that Bara Gold fought on when she was collared makes you feel like she had the ability maybe to put a little separation. And we're going to watch a race later that I think is a clear illustration of what I'm talking about. Now, at the end of the day, maybe she was second best. I just know that when I'm in a position to make an aggressive move and maybe take advantage of something, at least obviously when I was riding, I felt better about losing if I took the bull by the horns. And I just wish Jose maybe would have taken a little bit more initiative and maybe tried to kick on a little bit.
In the end, though, and your point is well taken, quite simply, second on the day with Bar of Gold, the New York bred, who's been a real good horse for the Bromans and trainer John Kimmel. And as you can see, the beaten 3-2 favorite in an 8-11-9 superfecta in the 17th Raven Run. Let's give the winner some acknowledgement here. Florent Giroux on a good run. We've covered a number of his stakes wins dating back to August at Arlington Park. And this filly, $20,000 two-year-old purchase by Sharp Humor, has now banked about $500,000, and she has not been a one-track wonder. Oaklawn, Churchill, Prairie Meadows, Saratoga, Charlestown most recently, and you were very critical, and rightfully so, of the ride she got. Well, she got a jockey change to Giroux, and it all worked out for trainer Ingrid Mason.
I think this is a case of have saddle, will travel. And, you brought up Florent Giroux, and we've seen a lot of highlights. We could put together a nice highlight reel for him. He's winning stakes. A lot of the credit for that has to go to his agent, Doug Brader, for his rise to prominence in big races.
And I will take that a step further. Jimmy Riccio, the agent of Jose Ortiz, has done an outstanding job with a very young rider, or a young rider who's at the top of his game, and he did not ride at Belmont on Saturday. He was aboard champion of the Nile in the rich $200,000 plus New York Breeders' Futurity. He was second, though. Really got used up. They went after him early as the big 1-4 favorite.
Yeah, and that's the problem. When you're a big favorite going into a smaller track with a big purse, you have a huge X on your back, and he's drawn towards the inside. What was he supposed to do? He's supposed to be on the best horse. He's got to go forward, and then he's got horses nagging him the whole way, and it kind of set up for a horse that has a lot of foundation. This is a sixth start for Dr. Shane, and he worked out a good trip. It was just unfortunate, but that's one of the things you contend with when you go into basically enemy territory.
Enemy territory. You've got the target on your back, and it turned out to be a win for the local, in fact, leading rider at Finger Lakes, and Jamie Rodriguez, who's finishing strongly here down the stretch. Nice seeing trainer Nick Essler in the winner's circle. It's a big win for Nick. Purse was a little over $200,000, and we're fond of Nick, a talented young trainer who was born in Ireland and now a United States transplant.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this last night as well when I looked at the result. Could this possibly be the biggest race Nick's ever won?
I would have to think so, yeah. Who knows about his jump career, because he was a steeplechase rider overseas, but as a flat trainer in the United States, I would have to think Saturday's Breeders' Futurity #1. From Finger Lakes to Hawthorne, a rare double on this show, but we're going to do it right now with a turf race. 3-year-olds in the Hawthorne Derby, and I'll send it to you coming towards the top of the stretch.
I think the winner, Lucky Lindy, got a terrific trip and a terrific ride from Robbie Alvarado, and we talk a lot about pace. Particularly in turf races here in New York. Well, this race and the next race we're going to watch did not lack in pace. They took it to them early. They went 46 and change, going a mile and an eighth. And usually this time of year, the Hawthorne turf course either is getting very soft because they've had a lot of rain, or very beat up. Well, it looks like that course is in pristine condition still. And this horse worked out the right trip on the day, running into that fast pace.
Ontario bred Robbie Alvarado up on Lucky Lindy, who's trained by Mark Frostad. This horse coming into the race off a win at Woodbine over the synthetic main track in the Grade 3 Ontario Derby. And I'm noticing a big Saturday throughout the United States for the late stallion Harlan's Holiday, who had annual report right here in the Futurity, and obviously he can throw a turf and synth horse as well. He left us too soon. Very good sire.
Yeah, it is a shame. And he throws horses that have that look like him, kind of rich, dark bay kind of horses that are, really well-bodied. And it was interesting watching this horse through the stretch. A lot of horses will jump back to their left lead when a rider hits them right-handed. He was on his right lead when Robbie was hitting him right-handed. The first time he hit him left-handed, he jumped back to his left lead and kind of ran into the whip. Most people, conventional thinking is a horse runs away from the whip. Yep. Some horses get mad and actually run towards it.
It's pretty interesting. How many times did that happen to you in your career? Quite a few?
Yeah, quite a few. You get, especially fillies would get mad. If you hit a filly that didn't really want to be hit, she wouldn't run away from it. She'd almost pin her ears and run towards it like she wanted to fight it.
And I think that's your cue to just put the stick away and get down.
Hands and heels.
Yeah, hands and heels. I like that. You were a clean, strong finisher as we get out to the action. And I'll tell you, for for a rider, and I'll get you the name in a second, who I'm not familiar with, as the Pride of Washington was coming down the Northwest with the upset winner of the Autumn Miss. Thought the jockey looked pretty strong here down the stretch.
Yeah, Leslie Mawing does a great job. He's always one of the leaders, if not the leader, up in the Pacific Northwest. He gave this filly a really good trip. Very fast pace. I mean, they went 22 flat, 45 and change. Basically, it fell in his lap, but it looked like through the last eighth of a mile, Jason, that there were any one of 3 or 4 could win, and everybody kind of just looked a bit hungry the last eighth of a mile and held their positions. But I agree with you. Leslie Mawing did a good job.
Huge ship and win for trainer Larry Ross, who I'm not familiar with either, but he's batting about 27% on the year with 21 victories from about 80 starters. And I just like that a good horse, it gets back to a statement you make quite often, a good horse can come from anywhere. And not to say this filly by Sky Mesa doesn't have a good pedigree, because she is a former Eugene Melnick homebred who was purchased, I guess, at one of his dispersed sales for $250,000. But I think it's cool. She won her 4th straight, and she did so Saturday at Santa Anita after scoring the natural hat trick northwest at Emerald Downs. Pretty cool seeing just a horse shift from that humble background to score at the great race place.
You would think about those people and how excited they would be coming down and then heading back home with the money. And they basically, like, the country bumpkin comes down to the big city.
Yeah.
And gets the money.
Good stuff there. Nice little story and a real nice footnote on this edition of the Racing Report, as we have a tribute to the late, great Jim McKay with Saturday's Maryland Million down at Laurel. It sounded like they had a great day. Place was packed, and I think handle was just under $4 million. It was up about 35% over last year.
It's great to see a great racing state like Maryland kind of have this renaissance. They're really, the excitement level there, you hear everybody talking about it. The Maryland Million, something that Jim McKay came up with. It was his idea. He went to the Boniface family, and then they really got this thing kicked off. And it's the fact that it's withstood the test of time, and it's still a great day of racing down there. And I thought it was fitting that we show that picture of Jim McKay, because he was such a lover of thoroughbred racing, and particularly his home state of Maryland.
And it is good to see Maryland on the right kind of track. They had put forth a number of renovations down at Laurel Park. I saw social media buzz, and it was good to see just some pictures of the newly renovated and updated Laurel Park. You like the ride from Taylor Hall. Take us through. She's on the lead here with Admiral's War Chest.
He's on the lead. You can see his body language. He's up a little bit. He's out off the rail. And watch how he you're going to see him physically. He drops down into his horse, starts moving his hands just subtly, but his body position changed, and he allowed Admiral's War Chest to basically rip the race open around the turn. And even if he got caught, I would have still said, I like this ride, because he took control of his own destiny. He said, hey, you know what? I got horse. I'm not waiting on anybody. They've got to run where I've been. And it was interesting. He asked this horse so much, he actually jumped his right lead, middle of the turn. Comes off the turn, already on his right lead. And you're going to see it's going to get desperate late. Jason, Bullheaded Boy, makes a big run at him and possibly would have caught him. It appears to me like the rider, Nick Juarez on Bullheaded Boy, must have lost his whip, because you can see he never, ever reaches to hit this horse. And this is a horse that responded positively to the whip when he ran here in New York under Johnny Velasquez.
Just a hard hand ride and kind of throwing a couple of crosses there, and he'll run out of racetrack, Bullheaded Boy, who nearly got the win for trainer Todd Fletcher. But I like off the Autumn Miss, in which we had the Emerald Downs shipper getting it done. We see jockey Taylor Hall in the winner's circle for his first stakes victory since 2011. And the winning trainer, again, a barn I'm not familiar with, Corby Caezo, his first ever stakes win, and they teamed up to do it in the biggest race on that entire Maryland Million program.
Yeah, it's fun when you see local people win on the locals' biggest day. And Taylor Hall's father was a tremendous rider. Michael Hall actually won the Marlboro Cup here on a horse named Big Spruce many years ago. So it's nice. I've seen Taylor grow up, basically, and a big tall guy who makes weight and has been doing it for a long time.
All right, good to see one of his highlights on this edition of the Racing Report as we, with all of you, charge down the stretch, Chad Brown centric, as we wrap up the show with some good-looking 2-year-olds and partisan politics.
The 16th foal, Rachel's Valentina, an awesome dame. And here is Rachel's little girl, Rachel's Valentina, in a dazzling debut.
To winner coming, Constellation. Rachel's Valentina runs at her and takes the lead. Tap to it on the outside, but they're coming down to the line. Rachel's Valentina is the
Yet another reason to watch and wager right here at Belmont Park and on the new look, intuitive NYRA.com. Rachel's Valentina has her sights set, a perfect 2 for 2 on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies. New members, by the way, at NYRA.com can sign up for a $125 bonus. If you haven't done so, well, we're less than 2 weeks out from the Breeders' Cup. What are you waiting for? And as the Mig and Jason join you on the final segment of the Racing Report, I like, and we talked about it the other night, we have that real classic East versus West matchup in the juvenile fillies.
Absolutely. I mean, the filly out on the West Coast, Jerry Hollendorf's filly, Songbird. I mean, she's been nothing short of sensational. But Rachel's Valentina has a special place in all of our hearts. We watched her mother. She's had trouble having foals. Now she has her, and she's 2 for 2. I like her style. I think the other filly, Songbird, could be vulnerable to pace if somebody else runs with her. This filly's going to sit back and make her run. She takes dirt. She's professional. Got the right connections, too, doesn't she?
Oh, Stone Street, Johnny V, Todd Fletcher, and she'll square off not only against Songbird, against Tap to It, who ran well picking up the pieces late in the spin-away and just ran out of racetrack Labor Day at Saratoga Racecourse, and she, of course, had a pretty snappy breeze Friday, half mile and 47 and change.
Yeah, 47 and change after a week earlier working 7 furlongs and 124. I mean, they don't run races much faster than that for 2-year-olds.
Yeah, Ralph Nix has got her primed for a big one at Keeneland as we get on to Chad Brown's good-looking filly. This is a segment of the show, 3 straight races in which Chad's name will come up quite often. Priced to Perfection. She's the full younger sister to Miss Temple City, who lost a tough one a week ago in the Grade 1 QE2, and here she comes with the red cap and white sleeves for Claridge Stables. Very sharp second time out. I like her.
Very, very sharp, very professional. Was able to negotiate her way through traffic under a beautiful ride. Priced to perfection. Well, she was ridden to perfection and really finished the deal. I think, obviously, this is a filly with a future.
And it's just amazing. Chad's prowess on the turf with young horses, colts, fillies, you name it. And he's got a very deep bench, a number of well-bred, pretty pricey horses, and gets the most out of Priced to Perfection. As we tape the show, Chad is #1 in the Belmont Park trainer standings with 21 victories, looking for his 4th consecutive fall training title. IRAD, that was one of his 3 victories on Saturday. Let's go from race 2 to race number 10 as a slow pace helped the 2 horses battling on the lead right now. And Jan's Reserve, who's in the lime green, sort of yellow silks for Michael Dilger, will track the pace outside beneath John Velasquez.
Well, and Johnny making sure he keeps the horse on the lead within his sights, because they went a half in 48 going 7 furlongs. They picked it up that third quarter. They went 23 and change, and basically it took everybody else out of the race. How do you make up ground when you've got 2 quality horses in front of you that have gone slow and now are accelerating at the same time you're trying to make up ground?
And that was the biggest hurdle for the Gray, the number 11 War of Ideas, a near $500,000 yearling purchase by Warfront, who was a 3-2 favorite first time out for Claridge and Chad Brown. He runs well in defeat, and this will be an effort in which he will likely propel forward, but the tactical edge went to the 2 fighting for the lead throughout, and Jan's Reserve, a colt by Reddy's Image, got the money for another graduate of the Darley Flying Start program, and Michael Dilger. Both he and Nick Essler wins on tonight's show.
Well, you know, you've got to have a good resume to get into that program, and then what you learn within that program to add to what you're already doing is huge. I thought it was interesting, the George Weaver horse. Was it George Weaver's horse finished 3rd, or was it Brian Lynch, actually?
Brian Lynch, yes. Gio's calling.
Yeah, a Gio Ponte, and we've seen the Gio Pontes kind of have been coming out running a bit. I think this is a horse to keep an eye on as well, because he was making up the most ground late off of that slow pace.
All right, let's move on to the action here. In fact, we backtracked to last Monday, October 12th, a very rare Monday card at Belmont Park. We were open for business in a solid field. Deep group of 3-year-old fillies battled in the featured 9th race, the Pebbles. And once again, Chad Brown, another major graded stakes win of the meet. Nice $200,000 purse. And this was a now or never situation in a way, Mick, for Partisan Politics, who had to finally deliver a knockout punch.
Well, I think she finally caught pace. She's been, kind of victimized by lack of pace in some of these races. She got a great trip, got a pace to run at. And you're going to notice, though, Jason, when she hits the front, she wants to idle. She's a filly that only wants to do absolutely what she necessarily has to do, and she gets to waiting on horses a bit, but Javier Castellano keeps after her, and she stays resolute to the wire.
And what a way to end the show regarding our little Belmont Park pick 3. Irad Ortiz, John Velasquez, followed by Javier Castellano.
Yeah, pretty good names on that list. A Hall of Famer and 2 that are probably destined to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. And I guess in this year of all these presidential debates, partisan politics was probably a hunch play as well.
Right on the money. I've enjoyed even Howard Stern talking about Donald Trump, and of course his run is trying to be the Republican candidate, but here we go with partisan politics as Javier has got that real distinct finish, stays busy right-handed on this filly by More Than Ready, who has continued his success regarding turf horses. He has been one heck of a sire.
Just phenomenal. And you think about how good Javier's on the turf, the sire's on the turf, the trainer's on the turf. Kind of a pretty formidable combination there. And you brought it up. You opened the door. Donald Trump, well, as far as I'm concerned, here's a guy who was born on third base and thinks he hit a triple.
No kidding. We'll wrap the show on that. We recap the New York Bred program, New York Bred Showcase Day. We'll have a live telecast, I think, beginning at 5 p.m. right here on MSG Plus this coming Saturday with the New York Racing Series. And there's Johnny V once again with the likable gray veteran discreet mark and $35 the Garden Terrace reservation. So join us here for Empire Showcase Day. Don't forget to set the DVR for MSG Plus, and we recap that entire program a week from now on this channel. Who's that handsome guy on the left? Along with Kieran McLaughlin, Jimmy Bell, and Joe Bravo. For the Big and myself, we say good night.